global citizen volunteers come to the U.S., we'll learn about this project on this episode of Travel Television. Insights on Volunteering in the U.S. by author Sheryl Kayne, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Peace Corps with a reenactment at the University of Michigan on this episode of Travel Television. On Web Tips, Volunteering in Australia. All this and more. So on to our first stop.
Rebuilding Together New Orleans is part of a national organization facilitating service projects throughout the United States. In New Orleans, RTNO hosts thousands of volunteers each year who come to rebuild the Gulf Coast area. The Rebuilding Together volunteers have logged over 250,000 hours of service. The results? Over 200 homes rebuilt. The organization works with low-income, elderly, and disabled residents, and a construction staff oversees the volunteers who are working on site. Travel Television visited Rebuilding Together New Orleans over the Christmas break when a group of volunteers from a New Jersey-based Jewish service organization traveled to the Gulf Coast as part of a mitzvah project. In Hebrew, the word mitzvah means a worthy deed or an act of kindness and compassion.
Hi, everybody. I am thrilled to be here down in New Orleans. This is my first time in this area. I'm from Massachusetts and very much a social action person. I like to do various things to help those who are in need. That's just who I am. I feel very fortunate and blessed in my life, the life that I lead, and I want to make life better for others. I feel that that's kind of one of my purposes, my main purposes for being here. And I found out about this project for rebuilding down in New Orleans. And of course I knew about what had gone on down here after Hurricane Katrina. And when I saw this opportunity, I'm a teacher, so this was happening over the December vacation. And I'm thrilled. I don't have carpentry skills, but everyone down here is very nice. And I'm doing things that I never pictured myself doing, but obviously I knew when I came down here I would be doing things like spackling and painting. Everyone is very nice and very appreciative. We all help each other, and we feel like this is something that we can do in a concrete way with our own two hands and our bodies to help repair this area. And I just feel this is like putting my body where my mouth is as far as Reform Judaism, to partner and do some repair work. And I strongly recommend, if this is something that you feel that you can do, bring yourself down here. It's incredibly beautiful and interesting to see what's going on, and the appreciation of people down here. We've had dinner in some people's homes, and people just stopping on the street and thanking us for coming down as volunteers to help rebuild their city.
My name is Sarah Loesch. I'm the Director of Lifelong Learning at the Barnard Temple in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. And we actually have a connection to Rebuilding Together in New York. One of our families works with them in the New Jersey area, and when we came down here last year, we worked with American volunteers, and this organization is working out remarkably great for us. I hope we're not needed anymore. Last year was pretty eye-opening and terrible, and this year I see a big difference. I really do. I see more people living in the streets. I see lights on. I see more care being given, and maybe that little bit of hope that all the volunteers have given over the last 3 years will continue to make a difference in the lives of the people here. Well, so I guess for me, it's really all about modeling the behavior. Making sure that we do what we say we're going to do. That we remember that sometimes it's people coming from far matters more to people than the fact that we're here building something. That it means something to them. I felt that by coming down here, and I don't quite know how to hammer and all that kind of stuff, but that I could go back after doing this and share my feelings with our families up there and let them see that this is something everybody could do. You don't have to be great at anything. You don't have to have a background. In fact, I think there are things that we do when we don't have the background that are better than the people who do, because it's not expected of us. So when I get back and I had a hard hat that everybody signed, and I had photographs of the kids that we worked with last year who were just delicious, and we put up pictures for everybody. Everybody said, "Oh, I would do that. I could do that."
Okay. Hi, I'm Richard Giverson. I'm from Wayne, New Jersey. I'm a union carpenter from New York City, and I'm down here because so much still has to be done. A lot has been done, but they really need help down here. I feel that people already swept the Katrina victims under the rug, and it just doesn't seem that they have the support from the government and other people. We're down here with a group with Rabbi Safin. We're a Jewish group that comes down from New Jersey. Rabbi Safin came and spoke at our temple, and I was very inspired to come down last year, and this is my second time. I hope that other people see this message and come down to help. Even if you're not skilled, they still need help. They need help carrying things, cleaning up. Just please come down. Thank you.
To see volunteer stories, go to www.projectkatrinavolunteers.net.
Exactly 50 years ago, history was made on these steps, and a truly remarkable story began. On a night much like this one, cool and rainy, presidential candidate Senator John F. Kennedy, standing before thousands of students, spoke about sacrifice and service. He challenged U of M students to use their education for a greater purpose. He asked them to serve this country by serving others in developing nations.
No speech had been planned. His staff went to bed. He saw this amazing crowd and said, of course, I have to say something.
I want to express my thanks to you as a graduate of the Michigan of the East, Harvard University.
If you hear the words he said, when you hear those words, you realize that it was a spirit.
How many of you who are going to be doctors are willing to spend your days in Ghana, technicians or engineers? How many of you are willing to work in the Foreign Service and spend your lives traveling around the world? On your willingness to do that, not merely to serve 1 year or 2 years in the service, but on your willingness to contribute part of your life to this country, I think will depend the answer whether a free society can compete. I think it can, and I think Americans are willing to contribute, but the effort must be far greater than we've ever made in the past.
You really have to know the times, and you have to know the context of Kennedy having been inaugurated in January, and this whole sense of new beginnings in the nation.
My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
There was excitement everywhere, and I think we felt a little bit like we were part of this new frontier.
But the magic of what happened that night was that those students, they caught not just the spirit, but the fact that those words could be turned into action.
Unless you comprehend the nature of what is being asked of you, this country can't possibly move through the next 10 years in a period of relative strength.
Kennedy sort of was intrigued with the fact that the students responded to him. And in fact, he even said after he left to go on his whistle-stop tour in the state of Michigan, he said, we got a winning idea.
The Peace Corps really was born because the sparks cast by John Kennedy that night, they caught and turned into a flame, and he used the flame to pick up the torch.
Here we were, just a few students at the University of Michigan who responded to a moment in history. And in less than 3 weeks, the future President of the United States is committing himself.
The spirit that was alive here 50 years ago, it seems to be alive again.
You know, it was 50 years ago that a young candidate for president came here to Michigan and delivered a speech that inspired one of the most successful service projects in American history.
And so, it is only fitting in this story so full of coincidence and synchronicity that another young president who also inspired the youth in America with his campaign to once again pass the torch to a new generation and reissue a challenge.
On your willingness to contribute
part of your life to this country, I think will depend the answer
whether a free society can compete. If you are willing, as past generations were willing, to contribute part of your life to the life of this country, then I, like President Kennedy, believe we can, because I believe in you. Congratulations on your graduation 2010. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Sheryl Kayne is a writer, adventurer, and educator. She has written several books on volunteering, including the latest, Volunteer Vacations Across America. The book includes over 200 affordable trips throughout the United States, from free opportunities to internships, stipends, and volunteerism packages. Having traveled to almost every state, this guide chronicles a long list of volunteer activities. Travel Television recently spoke with Sheryl, and now she shares some of her favorite trips.
Denali National Park is the only national park that has a team of dogs, a dog sled team, and still uses them to patrol the park. And their puppies and their dogs need walkers. So if you're in that area for an extended period of time, you can get trained and you can take a puppy on a walk.
So people can buy your book.
Yes.
They can be, for example, if they can incorporate this into, really, I mean, right here in the Virginia, D.C., Maryland area, I'm sure there's plenty of things that they can do. They don't even need to travel, but if they are traveling, they can buy your books. They can put it in as part of their vacation as well.
Right, right. You can supplement an already planned vacation, which is so great. Or you can plan an entire vacation around it, depending on how much time you want to devote to it. And also, many of the trips, the longer you commit, very often then you will get maybe housing or food. It depends on the mix. So you want to see what you can do. Also, do you dive?
My brother dives.
Okay, well, I don't dive. Oh, I would love to do that. But there's the Reef Organization, and there you go, you dive to actually, again, contribute to scientific research. And they are trained on exactly what they're looking for when they're diving, and they take all kinds of notes, and they contribute to the health and the well-being of the reefs.
Right, right. Yeah, that's very
off
important.
The coast of California, Hawaii, and Florida.
Very interesting. So what are your next upcoming steps, actually?
Well, my next book is also geared to wildlife, and it's called Living the Wildlife.
Living the Wildlife,
yes.
Okay.
It's volunteering, viewing, and protecting animals and their habitats around the world. This time I decided to expand and go out of the United States, but the United States will always, always be right in my heart.
Dear to your heart.
I think it's really important that we explore here first, but I have to admit that some of the trips that I've been finding are so amazing. I have some trips of a lifetime.
Right,
that can you just imagine going trekking and coming face to face with a gorilla?
Oh, that would be, I think that'd be a little scary, actually. Come to think of it.
I don't. I love
well,
it.
Well, for me, I mean, they seem kind of, that'd be interesting.
I want to go on safari. That
you
to
do?
me is really the ultimate.
Yeah.
Yes, that is something I'd really love to do. And I also like the idea that you can work directly with turtles in Tobago, or you can also work with them here in Barnegat, New Jersey. I mean, the beautiful center there. So there's so many things that you can do there and you can do here.
Right.
In a very different way.
Well, I tell you, I will be looking forward to your next book. I'll be looking forward to your next explorations as well.
Thank you very much.
So
I love what I do, and people really love animals. We have such a soft spot in our heart, and it's so important to protect the animals of our world so that they are here and healthy for future generations and our children to enjoy as well.
Absolutely.
So check it out on my website, immersiontraveler.com. Volunteer Vacations Across America and Immersion Travel USA are both available through all major bookstores and Amazon.com.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you. I loved it.
Conservation Volunteers of Australia has built a network of individuals and organizations who value that nation's unique environment and recognize the increasingly important role that we all must play in responding to the challenges of species and habitat loss, environmental degradation, environmental skills shortages, and the impact of a changing climate. Their mission is to attract and manage volunteers for practical conservation and heritage projects throughout Australia and New Zealand. A look through the cva.org website allows potential volunteers to find projects that interest them and a mechanism to book travel to that project destination in one place. For example, an interested volunteer can plug in the times they want to travel, whether or not they are interested in an overnight or weekend experience, and the number of people in their party, and a search engine will find a variety of opportunities. Our quick search found several results, including an appeal for volunteers to help researchers on Kangaroo Island build and maintain facilities and monitor wild echidnas, goannas, or little penguins. Volunteers on this particular trip can learn about native animals and alternative sustainable living in this almost pristine bushland habitat. Visit the conservationvolunteers.com.au site to plan your custom volunteer experience in the land down under or among the Kiwis.
You belong in the zoo. In fact, your whole family does. It's a great place to combine education and entertainment. You won't be alone. At today's quality zoos, over 140 million visitors a year have fun while learning about botany, biology, conservation, and much more. That's half the U.S. population, and more people than attend all professional football, basketball, ice hockey, and baseball games combined. And the assortment of people who visit the zoo is as diverse as the species of animals that live there. The first known zoos were in ancient Egypt, where wild animals were caged and worshipped. Later, collections of exotic animals became symbols of power and wealth, and rulers competed to acquire the greatest number of species for their private menageries. But it wasn't until the late 19th century that the word zoo was coined as an abbreviation for London's Zoological Garden. You can learn more at the American Zoo and Aquarium Association website, www.aza.org.
I'm at the Louisiana Music Factory, which is one of these places at the edge of the French Quarter that you have to put on your list of places to see when you come to New Orleans. Why? Well, you know, New Orleans is known for its music, and the culture of New Orleans is really tied to the music, and that music is created by lots of local artists. What you're going to see in this store are local artists and a collection so vast that you could spend all day here not only perusing the CDs, but actually listening to many of these talented folks. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to come to one of these listening stations, and the Music Factory here has a bunch of recommended CDs from many of these artists. We're going to pop it on and hear some of the talent. I'm listening to an artist named Donald Harrison. And as I'm listening, I see he's just come through the door. So we're going to stop the music for a few minutes and actually go and talk to him and learn about the local scene here in New Orleans from an artist's perspective. This is Donald Harrison. Donald, great to meet you. Tell me about your background here growing up with the music scene.
I grew up here in New Orleans, and my father bought me a saxophone, so I guess he knew that I should play saxophone. And I studied in high school and played with the brass bands here. Then moved to New York and was fortunate enough to play with all the greats, most of the greats who were alive at that time. And then started my own band, played in New York and traveled the world. Now I'm back home teaching and still traveling the world and playing jazz and every other type of music you can imagine.
So now what have you seen change here with the music scene in New Orleans?
I think we've had our trials and tribulations, as most of you know, but one great thing is that the world has focused on the fact that New Orleans is the root culture of much of the music that we hear in America today, and they really know the importance of this city now, and they're helping us to really maintain and to grow the culture here. It's a great experience.
It's fantastic, and it's one of the things you have to do. So if you are coming to New Orleans, what would you recommend if I had to go to some places and really get a feel for the different venues? Well, which ones would you recommend?
Well, my favorites are Snug Harbor for modern jazz, and Tipitina's for New Orleans R&B and funk. A lot
of dancing going on there.
Of course, you know, the Neville brothers started there, and they've sponsored so many great artists from Louisiana and have gone on to fame for playing in that club. And then for orchestral music and for plays, Broadway plays that are touring, you will go to Mahalia Jackson Theater.
Awesome, awesome. So 3 great recommendations, and you know what? How about we hear some notes?
Scott Beals started Atlas Service Corps in 2006 with the theme, Change Your Perspective, Change the World. Atlas selects individuals from around the world and pays for them to come to the U.S. for 1 year to serve as fellows and to become part of a team looking for solutions to global issues such as poverty, health, gender equity, and the environment. Facilitating international cooperation and developing global citizens is the focus of Atlas Corps. Travel Television sat down to talk to Scott. So how did you come up with this idea?
Sure. I used to work for the U.S. State Department, and before that I worked with a nonprofit called Ashoka. So I've lived around the world and met inspiring nonprofit leaders. Was reading Thomas Friedman's The World is Flat, and it occurred to me the world's flat in the private sector, it's flat in the academic sector, it's even flat in the athletic sector. Atlas Corps is a unique international nonprofit volunteer organization. What we do is we bring nonprofit leaders from around the world to volunteer in the United States, and we send a few Americans to volunteer abroad. Sometimes people call us a reverse Peace Corps because instead of sending Americans abroad, our primary program brings people here. What we do is we bring skilled professionals currently from 18 different countries to volunteer at nonprofits in DC and New York to learn skills, share their perspectives, and then create a global network of rising nonprofit leaders working together to address critical social issues. We also need people from around the world coming here. We also can learn from people overseas. Someone from Bangladesh who's an expert on floods could teach us a thing or two about the response to Katrina. They come and volunteer at similar organizations in the United States, and they share from their knowledge and skills and experience, but also learn from the U.S. organizations what they do right, and then also learn from each other. It's not a student program or an intern program. We're bringing people in their late 20s, early 30s. We have about a 1% acceptance rate, so they're exceptionally talented and skilled individuals. So people come, and whether they want to volunteer or get involved or become a fellow, and it's generally individuals, maybe learn about the program through State Department or through Ashoka or through Facebook, and they say to themselves, I have 5 years of experience, I have my graduate degree, I'm fluent in English, I'm an inspiring nonprofit leader. And then they apply, and it's a very long competitive process. Twice a year we take applications in the fall and the spring, and then twice a year we place fellows in the fall and the spring.
How long is that process from when they apply to when they get accepted, if they do?
About 6 months.
6 months, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have affiliations with just one nonprofit or multiple organizations, or how does that work?
We've worked with about 25 different nonprofits, and big organizations like the Grameen Foundation or Ashoka or TechnoServe, and smaller community-based organizations like Centronia or Mobilize.org. Any number of nonprofits could partner with us.
What kind of arrangements are provided by you, and what kind of arrangements do they need to provide in terms of coming into the U.S., and how long do they stay in the U.S.?
Right. They typically stay for about a year, or they could extend up to 18 months. One of the reasons why a program like Atlas Corps hasn't really existed is because the visa and the financing is moderately complicated. But having worked at State Department and consider myself a social entrepreneur, I had ideas about how to overcome that. We sponsor people on a special visa to come here. It's a training visa.
How about housing for somebody like that?
So it's fully funded. So we pay for their flight, their plane ticket, their visa. They get a living stipend, a lot like AmeriCorps Vista or the Peace Corps for that matter. So they don't really make any money on this experience, but they're living in a group house. They're cooking dinners as family dinners at home, and they go back home having not lost any money, but having gained a great experience.
Right.
We feel the Building Bridges Coalition and the larger Service World effort is a great group that we're proud to be a part of. And what Atlas Corps does is that we believe that we're bringing an important element to the coalition of partnership with countries overseas. One of the principles of the BBC and of service world is that it should be partnership, not paternalism. Mm-hmm. So some countries, sometimes people perceive when volunteers just go overseas and don't ask for the issues or concerns of the local constituency, it's seen as a paternalistic view of international service. Mm-hmm. Not that every American sending program is that way, but sometimes it's perceived to be that way. But at Atlas Corps, we're very much about partnerships, whether it's bringing Africans to volunteer here and partner with organizations to learn from as well as contribute their knowledge. It's about saying that, skills and talent and inspiration is evenly distributed among the world, but opportunity is not. And so we're kind of bringing that principle to the coalition and helping, I believe, round out the fact that international volunteerism could probably be a little bit more international than it currently is right now.
Right.
The challenges that we face are so great that we need to find a collaborative solution that's dealt in partnerships to really be able to tackle them in a meaningful way. And that's what Atlas Corps does, that's what the BBC does, and that's what Service World is all about.
Scott, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Okay.
Flying off with their little cherubs may be easier than many parents realize if they heed a few down-to-earth hints. First, lend an ear to dealing with ear pain, which can be particularly bothersome to children during descent. Swallowing or chewing can help. Infants should nurse or suck on a bottle. Older children can try chewing gum or blowing up balloons. Next, to reduce jet lag, try to adjust sleep schedules 2 to 3 days before departure.